So here, where things stand with Marc Marquez, and it's a lot more layered than a typical post-crash medical update. The reigning MotoGP world champion has just come out of a double surgery in Madrid, and the procedure itself, successful as it was, tells only half the story. The other half is about what's been quietly sabotaging his entire 2026 season, race after race, crash after crash, without anyone fully realizing why. It happened on Sunday, May 10th, at the Ruber International Hospital. Marquez went under the knife for two separate operations performed simultaneously. The medical team led by Dr. Samuel Antuña first addressed the obvious damage, a fractured fifth metatarsal in his right foot, the result of that brutal highside crash during the Le Mans sprint on Saturday. But as they worked, they found something else, a previously undetected break in the fourth metatarsal of the same foot. So that got stabilized too, right there on the spot. At the exact same time, another surgical team worked on his right shoulder. This wasn't a fresh injury, but an old one that had been quietly festering. They removed two screws that had been in there since his original Latarjet operation back in December 2019, plus a bone fragment that had shifted out of place. That fragment had been pressing on his radial nerve, and that pressure, intermittent, unpredictable, had been causing chaos every time he threw a leg over the bike. Ducati confirmed the surgery went well. Marquez stayed in the hospital overnight, then returned home the next day to begin rehabilitation. He will miss the Catalan Grand Prix next weekend, that much is certain. Beyond that, the comeback target is being evaluated step by step, with Mugello, the Italian Grand Prix on May 31st, marked as the earliest realistic return date. Let's walk through exactly what happened in that operating room, what Marquez has now revealed about the hidden injury that has been wrecking his season from the inside, and what a realistic timeline for his return actually looks like. From the surgical details to the paddock politics to the human stories running underneath every result, this is MotoGP covered the way it deserves to be. Start with the official Ducati statement. Their medical update confirmed in plain terms that Marquez was recovering at the Ruber International Hospital after successful double surgery that morning. The team explained that the fifth metatarsal fracture, the one from the highside in the Le Mans sprint, had been stabilized. Then they added the second part, a pre-planned procedure on the right shoulder, originally intended to fix an old injury that had flared up again after that violent crash at last year's Indonesian Grand Prix. Two screws and a bone fragment from the 2019 Latarjet surgery had shifted and were compressing the radial nerve. That's what got taken out. The statement also confirmed what we already knew: no Catalan GP for Marquez. He'd spend the night in the hospital, go home the next day, and begin rehab. The timeline for his return to racing would be determined by how the healing progresses over the coming weeks. That's the basic medical situation. Two surgeries in one day, one foot, one shoulder, both successful. But the real story, the one that matters most, came out in what Marquez himself said before going under the knife. Speaking to the media after the Le Mans sprint, Marquez dropped a bombshell that reframes his entire season. He admitted that the shoulder issue had been compromising him from the very first race. His exact words were striking in their honesty. It's not a very big injury, but it arrives at the correct time because already before here, we planned to have a surgery after Catalonia on my right shoulder. I was working hard these first races at home, and for some reason after Jerez, I realized that something wasn't working well. Let that sink in. The reigning world champion had been racing the first 5 rounds of the 2026 season knowing something was wrong. He'd already identified the problem, he'd already scheduled the surgery. His plan was to get through the Catalan Grand Prix and then have it fixed. The Le Mans crash just forced his hand earlier than intended. Then he explained the technical reality of what had been happening. For that reason I was fast, and sometimes, I don't know how, I don't know why, but I was not constant and strange crashes arrived. That sentence is the key that unlocks the pattern of his season. The pace was there, blistering record-setting pace. But then came the crashes: the Austin sprint crash, the Spanish Grand Prix crash, the Le Mans sprint crash. 3 crashes in 5 weekends in situations where he shouldn't have been pushing to the limit. Now we know why. The damaged screw was pressing on his radial nerve when he was in his riding position on the MotoGP bike. Not all the time, intermittently, enough to occasionally cut off the nerve signal to his arm and hand. That's the kind of injury that produces exactly the kind of crashes we've been watching: unexplained, sudden, violent. The bike was fine, the rider's body was not. His brother Alex Marquez confirmed the underlying problem before the surgery. He explained that Marc had been managing the situation all season. The team was managing it, the factory was managing it, but the one thing that couldn't manage it was the bike itself, which kept exposing the limitation through crashes. Consider this: Marquez set the all-time Le Mans lap record on Saturday despite riding with a compromised shoulder. That's the level of performance he can extract through pure skill and pain tolerance. And then he crashed in the sprint because that's the point where the shoulder gave way under genuine race pressure. Let's get into the technical details of the shoulder surgery because they matter. The original procedure, the Latarjet operation from December 2019, was done to fix a shoulder that had become loose from repeated dislocations over his career. In that surgery, a piece of bone is taken from the coracoid process, a small bone attached to the shoulder blade, and moved to the glenoid, the socket of the shoulder joint. That bone fragment is held in place with screws. Márquez broke his coracoid process in that Indonesian Grand Prix crash with Marco Bezzecchi at the end of 2025. That break damaged the existing screws and caused the bone fragment to shift. The shifted screw then started compressing the radial nerve. Now both screws and the fragment have been removed. The recovery from the shoulder surgery is expected to be relatively fast. Márquez himself has said as much. The operation is straightforward: remove the screws, take out the fragment, and the healing time should be short. The foot fracture is also a fairly standard healing process for a metatarsal break. The medical team stabilized both, the fifth metatarsal everyone knew about and the fourth metatarsal they found during surgery, typically. A fractured metatarsal takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal depending on severity and the rider's conditioning, but these are not typical circumstances. The return timeline depends on both injuries healing in parallel. Márquez laid out his approach clearly. For sure, Catalunya I will not race, and then we will understand step by step. Mugello. That means he's targeting the Italian Grand Prix on May 31st as the earliest realistic return, 3 weeks from the surgery date. That's genuinely ambitious for someone recovering from simultaneous foot and shoulder operations. But the foot fracture is in the smaller of the two metatarsals, and the shoulder procedure was relatively minor. Mugello matters strategically because it's a Ducati stronghold. The factory has historically performed well there. If Márquez can make it back in 3 weeks, his championship position can at least be stabilized. If he can't, the deficit will keep growing. And that deficit is now genuinely brutal. Aprilia just delivered a 1-2-3 finish at Le Mans on Sunday. Jorge Martin is closing in on Marco Bezzecchi for the championship lead. The 2026 Riders' title has effectively become an internal Aprilia battle. Márquez's path back to contention would require not just his own recovery, but also a significant Aprilia stumble across multiple race weekends. That combination is genuinely unlikely. Márquez has already publicly acknowledged that the championship is essentially out of reach. The remaining priority is to recover full physical capability before the end of the year and focus on the 2027 era. For Ducati, losing Márquez creates a strategic gap they now have to manage. Pecco Bagnaia becomes the lead factory rider for the next 2 race weekends. The 850cc development program for 2027 continues with its various testing windows. Whether Ducati brings in a substitute rider for Catalunya or any other races during Márquez's absence remains to be confirmed. The bigger picture for Márquez personally is now coming into focus. The pattern of his 2026 season finally makes complete sense. He was racing with an injury that should have been dealt with immediately. He was crashing because his body couldn't deliver what the bike required. He was showing extraordinary pace because his skill can compensate for almost anything, but not consistently. The Le Mans crash was the final consequence of waiting too long to address the underlying problem. Now both surgeries are done, the recovery begins, and the 2027 era awaits a rider who has finally had the chance to heal properly. The paddock's reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. Pedro Acosta said the crash was scary to watch back. Dani Pedrosa said he was speechless. Multiple riders and team members have publicly wished Márquez a fast recovery, and the fact that he walked away from such a violent highside, suffered 2 fractures, and had surgery on both injuries within 36 hours speaks volumes about the rapid response capabilities of modern MotoGP medical operations. Ducati's statement closed with confirmation that his health is the priority. That tone matters. It tells you the team is taking the longer view, not pushing for a quick return that could compromise the recovery. So here, where we leave it. What do you think? Will Marc Marquez genuinely return to MotoGP at the Italian Grand Prix in 3 weeks, or is that timeline too ambitious given the double surgery? Now that the underlying shoulder problem has finally been properly fixed, can he return as the dominant rider he was before the Indonesian crash? Or has the cumulative damage to his body become a longer-term concern? And has the Le Mans sprint crash effectively ended any realistic title hopes for 2026, or is there still a path back if he returns at full strength? Drop your predictions in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button and subscribe for more MotoGP news. I'll catch you in the next one.